Happy St. Patrick's Day. I'm Don Clavin, Town of Hempstead Supervisor. In Town of Hempstead, we take pride in our history, and this week we had history involving Irish heritage. So we thought today would be a fitting day to have a video telling you about this history, letting you know about what we did, and we're hoping you enjoy it. So sit back, have a great day, and enjoy yourself. And today, everyone's Irish.
I look where the ship helplessly heads end on. I hear the burst as she strikes. I hear the howls of dismay. They grow fainter and fainter. I cannot aid with my ringing fingers. I can but rush to the surf and let it drench me and freeze upon me. I search with the crowd. Not one of the company is washed to us alive. In the winter of 1836 and 37, a 17-year-old Hempstead resident named Walt Whitman wrote those haunting words after bearing witness to two devastating shipwrecks off the south shore of Long Island. These events would leave a large and lasting impression on the young Whitman and his work for the rest of his life. The Sleepers would eventually be included in his most famous poetry collection, Leaves of Grass.
Two shipwrecks happened, I guess, within approximately 50 days apart from each other. They both left Liverpool. Both ships were headed to America with mainly Irish immigrants aboard. The Bristol arrived at New York Harbor and alerted the pilots who were theoretically watching from the pilot stations in the harbor, and the pilot would get in his ship, come out, and then guide your ship safely through the Narrows into New York Harbor.
But the New York pilots were not on station to guide the ships in, past the rocks, past the shoals. They had decided to take the day off. It was a beautiful day for a picnic. A storm struck. The Bristol was wrecked on a sandbar at Rockaway Beach. It keeled over onto its side. Within minutes, 100 passengers drowned when they were trapped below decks. Rescuers from shore saved the crew and a few of the remaining passengers. The captain, a brave man, was the last to leave the ship.
Of the 100 or so people that died as a result of the Bristol shipwreck, 77 of those bodies were interred eventually in the Mariners' Burial Ground in the Rockville Cemetery in Lynbrook.
A mere 6 weeks after the Bristol disaster, while money was still being collected by local residents to bury those victims, tragedy struck Long Island again.
A few weeks later, the Mexico arrived outside New York Harbor, just as the Bristol had. Again, the harbor pilots were not on station. This time, they had taken the day off to celebrate New Year's Eve. As happened to the Bristol, the Mexico ran aground on a sandbar. This time, it was only 200 yards offshore at Long Beach. The temperature was only 3 degrees above zero. The waves were described as high as a house. A rescue crew from Freeport, led by Rainer Rock Smith, came out from shore. The captain and the crew jumped into the rescue boat. They were saved. But conditions worsened, and no rescues were attempted to save the passengers.
As a result of the wreck of the Mexico, 115 persons froze to death, and 62 of them were buried in the Mariners' Burial Ground.
In all, 215 men, women, and children perished in the two wrecks. These immigrants were merely looking to fulfill their dreams of a new life in America, only to die tragically within sight of those dreams.
As soon as the residents of the town of Hempstead learned of the tragic deaths, they acted quickly. They purchased land in what is today Lynbrook for the burial of 139 of the 215 total victims. The residents also raised donations for a monument and also used money taken from the bodies of the dead.
The land for the Mariners' Burial Ground was partially donated in 1837. The monument, which was also arranged for by that committee, was finished and placed over the southern end of the Mariners' Burial Ground in late October of 1840.
In the aftermath of the twin disasters, the New York press lambasted the gross and deadly negligence of the harbor pilots.
The pilot system failed here because it was wintertime. The weather was horrible during both of these shipwrecks, and the harbor pilots were busy partying for the holidays and not paying attention. So the press really jumped on the harbor pilot system.
Safety measures were taken by the government, making sea travel safer for the millions of Irish, Italian, German, and other immigrants who crossed the North Atlantic to New York. The New York pilot monopoly was broken. Never again did they all take a day off. The Ambrose Lightship was soon placed outside New York Harbor, and the U.S. government began the first paid life-saving service, and they used Rainer Rock Smith, the hero of the Mexico, out at Fire Island Lighthouse.
The life-saving station system was a series of buildings along the southern coast of Long Island that had rescue boats, that would have maybe a dozen people rowing them through the surf to shipwrecks to save people. And there would be a housekeeper, someone stationed at that building, and then volunteers would come as necessary to go out to help rescue people, and that was the precursor to the United States Coast Guard.
We should never forget our history as Americans, as Long Islanders, because it's these telling stories that we should be sharing with our children so that future generations can learn that there were immigrants that got to the edge of the New World and sadly and tragically lost their lives.
The monument is important for many reasons. One of the three applicants in the landmarking process here is the Order of Ancient Hibernians, which is an Irish-American society dedicated to helping Irish people in America. They have an annual celebration at the site, and they consider it a sacred site, as most people should consider that kind of a grave site to be terribly important. School groups come to the monument to learn about not just the shipwrecks, but to learn about the humanity expressed by the citizens of Hempstead in raising money, in allocating the space, in going to all the pains and troubles that they went to provide a decent funeral and place of burial for these Irish immigrants.
We are fortunate that back in the 1830s, the residents of the town of Hempstead created a burying ground and a lasting memorial to the heroic immigrant families whose untimely deaths still inspire us today. This sacred place is already on the New York State and the U.S. Registers of Historic Places. It is appropriate that the town of Hempstead will now add it to their own list of landmarked and preserved spaces.
The courage and heroism of these immigrants should absolutely be remembered because not only were they bringing themselves to the New World, but of course the future generations, in this case of Irishmen coming to the New World, seeking a better life for themselves and for their families. And it shows why immigrants, generation after generation, come to America, come to the New World, because this is the greatest country on earth, and we need to preserve that history at the Mariners' Burying Ground and the Obelisk Monument.